Woke up today and thought to myself, how will the left react to the death of so many migrants? Surely they can't push this to the side, right? Surely they can't do what they do best, or worst, actually, which is to rebrand, cover up and lie, deflect and blame past administrations. Surely they couldn't do that again. That the ineffective and non-existent strategy is so glaring and obvious after nearly 50 migrants were found dead in San Antonio, Texas, 155 miles from the Mexico border, and a major transit route for Mexicans and Central Americans being smuggled into the United States. I first thought, but how could this happen? I mean, our borders are. Kamala Harris, well, she told them not to come, didn't she?
I want to be clear to folks in this region who are thinking about making that dangerous trek to the United States-Mexico border. Do not come. Do not come.
Gotcha. But today, and the days and weeks leading up to today, even the left's mainstream media buddies have had no choice. They've practically begged and pleaded with this White House, with Joe Biden, with Kamala Harris, with Alejandro Mayorkas, to do something, anything. We're seeing even the mainstream media have no choice after record-breaking numbers at the border in May. The media is now begging the Biden administration, I almost said Obama, but Biden administration, to treat this as the crisis it so clearly is, to address the fact that tons of deadly fentanyl is making its way across into our country, a country that is so clearly struggling with fentanyl overdoses. Watch as MSNBC puts their promises of propaganda to the side. Watch as the Biden White House mouthpiece breaks out of its propaganda shell. It's a crisis, folks.
Some of them may not want to use the word crisis, but it's exactly what it is down along the border. When you have Customs and Border Patrol having 7,000, 8,000 encounters and apprehensions a day on the border, that is a crisis.
Thank you, Willie. For once, some honesty. Dozens of migrants had to die for these people to finally admit that it is, yes, a crisis. If you look at his face, his eyes, this man is practically begging them to admit it's a crisis. And despite this White House's lies and cover-ups and their constant claims otherwise, even MSNBC admits this administration has an open-door policy when it comes to these illegal migrants, these invaders from making their way into our country and our cities.
People don't like hearing it. They need to hear it. This is something that Democrats need to get their arms around.
Yeah, and it's really bad at the moment. I was down in Arizona recently, and everybody is talking about the situation, and many actually talking about the tragedy of the situation of women getting raped as they come across, of children getting separated from their parents, of children getting raped as they come across, of the people smugglers really taking advantage of what is seen as an open door policy.
I wonder if those 50 people died from gunshots or a mass shooting. These people would be all over their wall-to-wall coverage of how we need more gun control. But it was migrants, so it'll probably be the last we hear of that. And yet, when asked about it today, after the awful news of that tractor trailer found near the border, White House mouthpiece, Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre, somehow had the audacity to somehow say this.
We're focused on them, on the facts, and holding the human strugglers who endangered vulnerable individuals for profits accountable. And we're focused on continuing our historic actions to disrupt dangerous smuggling networks, including through a new anti-smuggling campaign that just in the first 2 months resulted in over 1,800 arrests. But the fact of the matter is the border is closed.
Closed to whom? What are you talking? The border is closed? The border is closed, she says.
I don't want to hear any more of these lies.
Yeah, I don't either. Too bad that's an audio, so we didn't even know if KJP uttered that outright lie with a straight face, but it sure sounded like she said it with certainty. 50 people were found dead in a suspected smuggling operation. Officials saying it appears to be the deadliest such incident ever in this country. But that woman said the border is closed, and actually has the gall to utter phrases like historic actions and talks of a new anti-smuggling campaign on the day they discovered the largest and deadliest smuggling incident. But why are we talking about this? Why does it seem that the left continues to gloss over the fact that the number two in our country is not only useless, but frighteningly clueless? Kamala Harris, was appointed as the so-called border czar well over a year ago and has become one of the record-breaking most massive crises in recent history. The border czar and new czar of disinformation, which in this case means that she's very, very best at dishing it. Kamala Harris sat in the hot seat during an interview with CNN. And I use that term hot seat loosely because not really. And the number two in our country offered some very complicated and useful answers to some of the most burning issues being faced by Americans. The number one issue, inflation, and the very real threat of a recession. And here she is. Here's the Vice President of the United States of America, Kamala Harris, on the possibility of a recession.
Now, inflation is really high. Are you concerned about a recession? The administration said that they weren't that worried about inflation, and then that changed.
I think that there can be no higher priority than what we have been clear is our highest priority, which is bringing down the costs and the prices as much as we possibly can, and we will stay focused on that.
How? Offer something. Bring down the cost. Got it. How are you going to do it? Are you focused? Are you focused on that like you're focused on the border? That kind of focus, I shudder at the thought that this is the number two. This is who's in charge if anything happens to our sprightly president. And you see, whenever Kamala Harris or anyone from this administration says anything is of the highest priority, you know nothing of substance will ever be done with it, for it. In fact, you should worry when they say that.
Is there anything else you can do to help bring down the cost of gas?
Well, first of all, let's just say that this is a very real issue, and we have to do something about it, and it's one of our highest priorities.
Okay, great, Captain Obvious. Yeah, it is a real issue. So what are you going to do? So I guess telling those gas prices don't come, that didn't work. That didn't work.
Do not come. Do not come.
Why don't you ask gas prices to go down? Gas, go down, go down. But yes, thank you, Veep. This is a very real issue. Americans unable to fill up their gas tanks is a very real issue. One that your boss, Joe Obama himself, created with his ridiculous policies. It's also one, by the way, that's far more important than fighting so-called disinformation online.
The internet is an essential part of life in the 21st century. Can't get around it. Can't get around without it.
Oh my God, how did we elect them? Can't live without the internet, says our new internet czar, but suddenly, thanks to the truth now coming out about the left and their lying ways, King Barack Obama says that so-called disinformation must be combated.
We have to take steps to detoxify our discourse.
Detoxify our discourse.
Particularly the scourge of disinformation and conspiracy theories and hate online that has polluted our political discourse.
Detoxify our discourse. Hate that has polluted our political discourse. Well, let's talk about that for a second, shall we? Exactly 2 weeks ago, Kamala was anointed as the head of the online task force, the head honcho of the brat pack of the Biden administration. Among this country's worst offenders of peddling disinformation within those 2 weeks, the addresses of the private homes of the Supreme Court justices have been posted online. And there's been plenty of online harassment, disinformation, and downright bullying of Supreme Court justices, but of one in particular, Justice Clarence Thomas. This level of racism seems like just the thing for this online task force, wouldn't you think? On the White House government website explaining the creation of this online task force, it was all about, quote, developing programs and policies to address online harassment, abuse, and disinformation campaigns targeting women and LGBTQI plus individuals who are public and political figures, government and civic leaders, activists, and journalists in the United States and globally, targeting women and LGBTQI individuals. So anyone else, I guess, fair game, I guess it doesn't matter that Justice Clarence Thomas was one of several undoing a bad, unconstitutional decision made years ago. So I guess it's okay for Slam Justice Thomas online and anywhere else to refer to him in the most racist of ways as Uncle Tom or Uncle Clarence, because that's what they did, and to throw at him the worst slur possible. I guess that's just fine for Kamala and her online task force of disinformation and uselessness. I take it this is just fine with Kamala. lie.
He better hope that, because we weren't in the Constitution, we were not in the Constitution either. Well, we were not even people in the Constitution.
Nothing is precedent anymore.
Well, you better hope that they don't come for you, Clarence, and say you should not be married to your wife, who happens to be white.
Ooh. And I guess this is fine, too.
Now, we know what happened with the Supreme Court yesterday. And if you read Clarence Thomas' concurrence, he said, thank you, Clarence Thomas.
Oh, you Clarence Thomas!
He thinks we are going to stand idly by when they take our rights.
Yeah, so proud of her. Loser Lori Lightfoot, mayor of my hometown, Chicago. But I suppose those types of attacks are just fine with Joe Biden, Barack Obama, Kamala Harris, because what Justice Thomas was a part of didn't serve their agenda. That's how it works with the left. I'd be curious to know what the former and current president, Barack Obama, the first black president, by the way, thinks about these racist attacks on our only black Supreme Court justice for only doing his job, the job to uphold the Constitution. Where's Obama, the first black president, on these attacks coming from his beloved Hollywood and from politicians and leaders? The de facto president is awfully silent right about now, don't you think? And Kamala Harris, the first female vice president, the first vice president of color, has been awfully silent on this, too. But you know who's not silent on this? Though I think we wish she would be silent on this and maybe everything else. Why, repeated losing presidential candidate, perpetual liar, shady Hillary. She's got a thing or two to sprout out.
I went to law school with him. Mm-hmm. He's been a person of grievance for as long as I've known him. Resentment, grievance, anger. And the thing that is, well, there's so many things about it that are deeply distressing, but women are going to die, Gail. Women will die.
Did she just say Clarence Thomas was an angry black man? Because I'm not sure that's what you're supposed to say as a white woman. She keeps coming back, though. How do we make it stop? Please make it stop. Hillary Clinton fabricated Russian collusion narratives over and over and over again and still didn't even win an election.
I don't want to hear any more of these lies.
Shady Hillary Clinton spied on Donald Trump's presidential campaign and still didn't win an election. Why does she keep talking and saying things, but coming back to the White House, she never managed to get her shady paws on? Here's the thing. I think it's clear, not just because of this massive travesty that was discovered yesterday, this apparent smuggling operation near the Mexico border. It's clear, not just because tons of fentanyl being seized coming into this country during a massive fentanyl overdose crisis. It's clear this administration really plans on doing nothing at all to stop it. In fact, Joe Biden is only making it worse after continuing to secretly fly illegal migrants into cities around the country in the dead of night. The Biden administration is actively working to keep these undocumented invaders in our country for good. We already know the Biden administration allowed these illegal migrants to stay here, await their court cases. We already knew that they potentially would bring in COVID, and we already knew the danger they pose since there is no real way to track them once they're in the country or vet them. But now, drum roll please, because Biden is conducting a de facto amnesty. That's right. While you're distracted by the worst inflation and crime seen in decades, while you're distracted by Supreme Court decisions, bogus witch hunt political hearings, and sky-high gas prices, the Biden White House is quietly doing away with their immigration court caseload. Turns out that between 60,000 and 80,000 cases have been closed. And the total case closures since the start of fiscal 2022 last October is more than 97,000. So, Kamala, the border czar, can say this all she wants.
Do not come. Do not come.
Joe Biden is letting these people come. These invaders are welcome, and they can stay, too. Word of these policies gets back to the countries. They know they can come and go as they please, and Kamala Harris can talk about root causes all she wants. But the root cause is this. Joe Biden is practically begging for our borders to be invaded. He's practically enticing these smugglers, these cartels, to do what they want with our borders as they want. Our borders are open. Our borders have been proverbial welcome mats with Biden written right on it, placed in front of them. As long as Joe Biden is president and as long as Kamala Harris is our so-called border czar, the root cause of this crisis is quite clear. And it's not disinformation. It's them.